Your brain is lying to you, not metaphorically, not philosophically, neurologically. Right now, at this moment, your brain is running a program so old it predates language, a survival mechanism that was designed for a world that no longer exists. And inside that ancient program is a flaw, a glitch, a bias so deeply embedded that it actively works against everything you're trying to build. Here's the glitch. Your brain cannot tell the difference between doing something and talking about doing it. When you announce a goal, when you tell someone your plan, your vision, your next move, your brain registers a hit of dopamine almost identical to the hit it would get from actually achieving it. Which means the moment you speak about what you're going to do, you have already, at the neurological level, partially done it. The hunger that would have driven you, partially satisfied. The urgency that would have kept you up at night, partially released. The obsession that separates people who build things from people who only talk about building things, gone before you ever started. Psychologists have studied this. Machiavelli observed it 500 years before the science existed to explain it. And the people who figured this out, quietly, privately, without announcing that they'd figured it out, used it to build empires, fortunes, legacies, while everyone else kept talking. 500 years ago, a man sat in exile, stripped of power, writing by candlelight, and he understood something about human nature that most people still haven't learned. Niccolo Machiavelli watched kings rise and fall. He studied men who had everything and lost it overnight. He watched visionaries become victims of their own openness. And he wrote something that sounds almost cruel until you understand why it's true. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Not deception in the dishonest sense, deception in the strategic sense, the art of protecting what matters before the world has a chance to destroy it. Machiavelli understood that most people aren't defeated by enemies. They're defeated by their own need to be seen. Here's what nobody tells you about sharing your goals. Your brain doesn't know the difference between doing a thing and talking about doing a thing. When you tell someone about your plan, your new business, your fitness goal, your decision to change, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical it releases when you actually accomplish something. Think about that. You haven't done anything yet. You've only spoken. But neurologically, your brain partially registers it as complete. Psychologist Peter Gollwitzer studied this for decades. He found that people who announced their intentions were significantly less likely to follow through than people who stayed silent. The announcement itself provided a premature sense of identity satisfaction. You said you were becoming a writer, so your brain, just slightly, just enough, already believes you are one. The hunger that would have driven you to the desk at midnight. It's already been fed. Most people stop here and think the lesson is simply, don't tell people your goals. But that's only the surface. It gets deeper. The moment you share a plan, you create an invisible audience inside your mind. And that audience changes everything. Suddenly, you're no longer working toward a goal. You're performing for the people who know about it. Every decision you make gets filtered through one unconscious question. What will they think? This is where momentum goes to die. Imagine a man who decides to start a business. He tells his family. He tells his co-workers. He posts about it. Now watch what happens when he faces the first obstacle, the first rejection, the first failure, the first moment where everything looks impossible. A man working in silence asks one question: how do I solve this? But the man with an audience asks something different. What are people going to think when I fail? He's no longer navigating a challenge. He's managing perception, and perception management is the enemy of real progress. Machiavelli saw this in the courts of Florence. The princes who survived weren't the loudest ones. They were the ones whose moves no one saw coming, because no one knew what they were planning until it was already done. Silence wasn't weakness. Silence was armor. But here's where things become truly interesting. When you share your vision with the wrong person, something invisible enters you. Their doubt. They may not even say anything negative. Maybe they just pause a half-second too long before responding. Maybe they say, "That's ambitious," in a tone that means something else entirely. You feel it. You absorb it. And then you carry it into the work. This is what Machiavelli called the danger of counsel offered too freely, advice that wasn't asked for from people who don't share your risk. Because here's the brutal truth. The person giving you their opinion has nothing at stake. They go home the same whether you succeed or fail. But you're the one who has to live inside the consequences of your choices. So, why would you let someone who isn't betting their life on it influence the vision that is your entire life? The people closest to you, the ones who love you most, will often be the most dangerous voices in the early stages of a plan. Not because they're malicious, because they're afraid for you. And fear disguised as concern sounds exactly like wisdom. There's another layer here that most people never consider. Every plan has a fragile stage. It's the stage where the idea is real enough to pursue, but not yet strong enough to defend. At this stage, one sharp question can dismantle it. One cynical response can reveal a flaw you weren't ready to confront. One conversation can send you back to zero, not because the plan was bad, but because it hadn't been tested yet by doing. It hadn't earned its resilience. Da Vinci didn't explain his paintings before he painted them. Lincoln didn't announce the Emancipation Proclamation until he had the political ground to stand on. Jobs didn't tell the world about the iPhone until the moment he walked onto a stage and put one in the world's hands. These weren't accidents of secrecy, they were strategic, because these men understood something essential. An idea protected in silence becomes a weapon. An idea exposed too early becomes a wound. The world doesn't know how to handle things that don't yet exist, so it tries to fit your vision into what it already understands. And if it can't, it rejects it. Your job is to make it exist before you let the world judge it. But this isn't just about strategy. This is about who you're becoming. At some point, this stops being about tactics, because there are two kinds of people in this world. There are people who need to announce, who require external validation to believe their own momentum is real, who measure the value of a goal by how many people know about it, who confuse being seen with making progress. And there are people who build in silence, who have learned to find their fuel from within, who don't need permission, who don't need applause to keep moving, who understand that the most powerful things in their life were forged in private before they were ever revealed in public. You can tell which one someone is before they even speak. The person who needs to announce will tell you what they're going to do before they've done a single thing. The person who builds in silence will show you results before you even knew they were working. One is performing. One is becoming. And here is the shift that Machiavelli was really pointing toward. Not a strategy for your goals, but a philosophy for your identity. Stop being the person who lives for the moment the announcement is made. Become the person whose silence signals something dangerous. Imagine what changes when you master this. You stop seeking validation before you've done the work, and that removes the invisible ceiling most people never even see above them. You move faster, because you're no longer performing for an audience in your head, you're solving actual problems. You become harder to read, and people who are hard to read command a different kind of respect, not fear, but gravity. There's something about a person who moves without explanation that makes others pay attention, and when you finally do reveal something, a finished project, a new direction, a transformation, it lands with the full weight of reality, not the weight of a promise, the weight of proof. That's when people lean in. That's when silence becomes power. Go back to that moment at the beginning, the one where you felt something shift, where you had a vision so clear it felt like waking up. Now you know what that moment is. It's not a moment for sharing, it's a moment for protecting. The dream in its earliest form is the most sacred thing you have. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't need to survive anyone else's doubt before it's had the chance to survive yours. Machiavelli didn't teach cruelty. He taught clarity. And the clearest truth he ever revealed is this: the most powerful move you will ever make is the one no one saw coming. If something in this shifted how you see yourself, not just how you think about goals, but who you've been allowing to hold the keys to your ambition, then you already know what to do next. Not announce it. Begin. And if you want to go further down this road, strategy, psychology, the philosophy of power and self-mastery, subscribe. Not because of this video, because of who you're deciding to become.